to accept the first worship in this great sacrifice? We cannot even ascertain which caste this Krishna belongs to, or what his actual occupational duty is.
Actually, Krishna does not belong to any caste, nor does he have to perform any occupational duty. It is stated in the Vedas that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do as his prescribed duty. Whatever has to be done on his behalf is executed by his different energies. Shishupal continued. Krishna does not belong to a high family. He is so independent that no one knows his principles of religious life. Indeed, it appears that he is outside the jurisdiction of all religious principles. He always acts independently, not caring for the Vedic injunctions and regulative principles. Therefore, he is devoid of all good qualities. Shishupal indirectly praised Krishna by saying that he is not within the jurisdiction of Vedic injunctions. This is true, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That he has no good qualities, gunai hina, means that Krishna has no material qualities. And because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he acts independently, not caring for conventions and social or religious principles. Shishupal continued. Under these circumstances, how can he be fit to accept the first worship in the sacrifice? Krishna is so foolish that he has left Mathura, which is inhabited by highly elevated persons following the Vedic culture, and has taken shelter in the ocean, where there is not even talk of the Vedas. Instead of living openly, he has constructed a fort within the water, and is living in a place where there is no discussion of Vedic knowledge. And whenever he comes out of the fort, he simply harasses the citizens like a dacoit, thief, or rogue. Shishupal went crazy because of Krishna's being elected the supreme first worshipped person in that meeting, and he spoke so irresponsibly that it appeared he had lost all his good fortune. Being overcast with misfortune, Shishupala continued to insult Krishna, and Lord Krishna patiently heard him without protest. Just as a lion does not care when a flock of jackals howl, Lord Krishna remained silent and unprovoked. Krishna did not reply to even a single accusation made by Shishupal. But all the members present in the meeting, except for a few who agreed with Shishupal, were very much agitated, because it is the duty of any respectable person not to tolerate blasphemy against God or his devotee. Some of them, who thought that they could not properly take action against Shishupal, left the assembly in protest, covering their ears with their hands in order not to hear further accusations. Thus they left the meeting, condemning the action of Shishupal. It is the Vedic injunction that whenever there is blasphemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one must immediately leave. If he does not do so, he becomes bereft of his pious activities and is degraded to a lower condition of life. All the kings present belonging to the Kuru dynasty, Matsya dynasty, Kaikeyi dynasty, and Shunjaya dynasty were very angry, and immediately took up their swords and shields to kill Shishupal, who was so foolish that he was not even slightly agitated, although all the kings present were ready to kill him. Shishupal did not care to think of the pros and cons of his foolish talking, and instead of stopping when he saw that all the kings were ready to kill him, he stood to fight with them, and took up his sword and shield. When Lord Krishna saw that they were going to fight in the arena of the auspicious Rajasuya Yajna, he personally pacified them. Out of his causeless mercy, he himself decided to kill Shishupal. When Shishupal was abusing the kings who were about to attack him, Lord Krishna took up his disc, as sharp as the blade of a razor, and immediately separated Shishupal's head from his body. When Shishupal was thus killed, a great roar and howl went up from the crowd. Taking advantage of that disturbance, the few kings who were supporters of Shishupal quickly left the assembly out of fear for their lives. Then the fortunate Shishupal's spirit soul immediately merged into the body of Lord Krishna in the presence of all, exactly as a burning meteor falls to the surface of the globe. The merging of Shishupal's soul into the transcendental body of Krishna reminds us of the story of Jai and Vijay, who fell to the material world from the Vaikuntha planets upon being cursed by the 4 Kumaras. For their return to the Vaikuntha world, it was arranged that both Jai and Vijay, for 3 consecutive births, would act as deadly enemies of the Lord, and that at the end of these lives they would return to the Vaikuntha world to serve the Lord as his associates. Although Shishupal acted as the enemy of Krishna, he was not for a single moment out of Krishna consciousness. He was always absorbed in thought of Krishna, and thus he first got the salvation of Sayujya Mukti, merging into the existence of the Supreme, and was finally reinstated in his original position of personal service. The Bhagavad-Gita corroborates the fact that one who is absorbed in thought of the Supreme Lord at the time of death immediately enters the kingdom of God after quitting his material body. After the salvation of Shishupal, King Yudhishthir awarded all the members present in the sacrificial assembly. He sufficiently remunerated the priests and learned sages for their engagement in the execution of the sacrifice. And after performing all this routine work, he took his bath. This bath at the end of the sacrifice is also technical. It is called the Avabhritya bath. Lord Krishna thus enabled the performance of the Rajasuya Yajna arranged by King Yudhishthir to be successfully completed, and being requested by his cousins and relatives, he remained in Hastinapur for a few months more. Although King Yudhishthir and his brothers were unwilling to have Lord Krishna leave Hastinapur, Krishna arranged to take permission from the king to return to Dwarka, and thus he returned home along with his queens and ministers. The story of the fall of Jaya and Vijay from the Vaikuntha planets to the material world is described in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The killing of Shishupal has a direct link with that narration of Jai and Vijay. But the most important instruction we get from this incident is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being absolute, can give salvation to everyone, whether one acts as his enemy or as his friend. It is therefore a misconception that the Lord acts with someone in relationship of friend and with someone else in the relationship of enemy. His being an enemy or friend is always on the absolute platform. There is no material distinction. After King Yudhishthir took his bath at the conclusion of the sacrifice and stood in the midst of all learned sages and brahmanas, he seemed exactly like the king of heaven, and thus looked very beautiful. King Yudhishthir sufficiently rewarded all the demigods who participated in the yajna, and being greatly satisfied, all of them left, praising the king's activities and glorifying Lord Krishna. When Shukadev Goswami narrated these incidents of Krishna's killing Shishupal, and described the successful execution of the Rajasuya Yajna by Maharaj Yudhishthir, he also pointed out that after the successful termination of the yajna, only one person was unhappy. He was Duryodhana. Duryodhana by nature was very envious because of his sinful life, and he appeared in the dynasty of the Kurus like a chronic disease personified to destroy the whole family. Shukadev Goswami assured Maharaj Parikshit that the pastimes of Lord Krishna, the killing of Shishupal and Jarasandha and the releasing of the imprisoned kings, are all transcendental vibrations, and that anyone who hears these narrations from authorized persons will immediately be freed from all the reactions of the sinful activities of his life. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 74th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of Shishupal.
Thank you very much. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmriditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manokistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadam Mahyam Dadhati Sapadantikam Vande Han Shri Guru Shri Jutapakakamana Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrashatam Sahaganam Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajivam Satvaitam Savatutam Purijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaganam Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamstra He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishakanu Sute Devi Shanamani Goripriya Vancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Kedasha Aditanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Jayadvaita Vedanta Shri Vasari Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We heard about the arguments for electing Krishna as the person to receive Agra Puja, first worship in the assembly. We heard Sahadev's glorification of Krishna as the most qualified person, and we've heard Shishupal's deriding of Lord Krishna. Yeah. He has, in so many ways, insulted Krishna, and finally insulted the kings who were angry. This is a point that one should not hear blasphemy of devotees. If one sits and listens, then one takes part in the sin of Vaishnava Ninda. One should strictly avoid hearing such things. Either one should defeat the blasphemer or go away. We hear that some present, they just covered their ears and left, and others were prepared to kill Shishupal. But finally, Krishna killed him with his Sudarshan weapon. And we're reminded of the activities of Jai Vijay, where we learn how the soul of Shishupal merged into the body of Krishna. And we understand that finally he went back to the Vaikuntha planets. Just for fun, or promotion. I've written about this in my book, Vanity Karma. There's a verse in Ecclesiastes, 2 verses. The words of a wise man's mouth win favor, but the lips of a fool will swallow him. The words of his mouth begin in foolishness, and his talk ends in grievous madness. So I comment, I'm reminded of an incident told in Srimad Bhagavatam concerning a king named Shishupal, who lived while Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, was performing pastimes on earth. At an august assembly on a sacred occasion, at which Lord Krishna was personally present and was to be honored, Shishupal rose to insult him. The learned dignitaries who had assembled, he began, had all had their intelligence misled, and so they had chosen to honor such an unworthy person as Krishna, a disgrace to his family, someone no better than a crow, a mere cowherd with no good qualities. As Shishupal raged on, Lord Krishna simply sat tolerant, ignoring him. But as the diatribe grew to a crescendo of insults, warriors like the Pandavas finally jumped up and drew their swords to kill the frenzied king. Undaunted, Shishupal now began insulting them. Then Lord Krishna, seeing bloodshed imminent at this holy gathering, released his Sudarshan disc, a divine weapon, neatly beheading Shishupal, and without spilling a drop of blood. Traditional commentators cleverly reinterpret the Sanskrit of Shishupal's insults in such a way as to see them all as praises. And the Bhagavatam says that being killed by Krishna himself granted Shishupal liberation from material existence. Shishupal also did us the favor of serving as an extreme model of a ranter whose words begin in foolishness and end in wicked madness, by which he himself is devoured. Though Shishupal multiplied his words, talking on and on, he did not know what would happen, and who could have told him. That's because there's a third verse. A fool also multiplies words, yet a man does not know what will be, and who can tell him what will happen after him? So Shishupal multiplied his words, talking on and on, but didn't know what would happen. And who could have told him? So the Bhagavatam confirms the version of the Old Testament. Are there some questions, comments? Yes?
This is a question somebody asked me, and I didn't know quite how to reply. I just told them that maybe Shishupal and Dantavarkar did other pretty egregious things, but basically they said Jai and Vijay come down in pretty fantastic forms. Hiranyakashipu, the chapter in Bhagavatam is called the greatest of all demons. Hiranyaksha, pretty fantastic. Ravana and Kumbhakarna, pretty epic. Shishupal and Dantavarkara, kind of 100 insults tolerated against Krishna by Shishupal, and Dantavarkara gets dealt with over a chess match. It's kind of a little bit anticlimactic. Even Jarasandha seems more potent. So as far as demons of the time, the third incarnations of Jai and Vijay seem a little not so impressive. I'm just wondering if you have some thoughts. In terms of Krishna sporting, this is for his fun to fight with, and not much fighting, just no blood even.
Yeah, I don't have a thought except my own speculative thoughts, which are probably best left unsaid. Yeah, I don't have anything to say.
Do you agree that they seem a little weak, or is that not the image you get?
Well, they may have been running out of steam by then, Yes. We're giving you a mic. Click, click.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. Maharaj, so the Shastras, and for instance Bhagavad-Gita 4:8 says that Krishna comes to planet Earth to re-establish Dharma, to protect the devotees, and to so-called kill the demons. But actually, he didn't come to punish the demons. He came to liberate them, because all the demons, they were so-called killed, but actually they were gifted by liberation.
That means Krishna's punishment and Krishna's blessing are equally good. On relative platform, punishment is punishment and a blessing is a blessing. But on the transcendental platform, it's a blessing when Krishna punishes the demons even. Suridam Sarvabhutanam, he's the best friend of every living entity, even of the demons. Of course, he's friendly in a different way, but he's friendly. Okay, something else? Yes?
Hare Krishna. How do we know the difference between blasphemy and calling a spade a spade?
How do we know the difference between blasphemy and calling a spade a spade? Lots of times there is no difference. You know, we think we're calling a spade a spade, and really what we're doing is sadhuninda.
So what do we do? What do we do in case that we're with seniors that are blaspheming or calling a spade, and we're present and we can't really walk away?
Run.
And in case that you have listened because you thought you couldn't run, how do you rectify yourself?
Chant Hare Krishna. You may apologize to the devotee for even having heard what little you heard, but you got out as quickly as you could. So. Otherwise, I know that this is blasphemy, but wonder what he's going to say. You know, there's still some taste there for sadhuninda, so we don't want that taste. That's poison. Yes.
Hare Krishna. So it is said that the blasphemy of the Supreme Lord is very dangerous. But these blasphemies, these words are put in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the devotees read these blasphemies.
It's said that one should hear the blasphemy, but hear the blasphemies recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is safe. You know, that in the Centers for Disease Control and these high-tech level 4 bio labs and everything, they work with things like anthrax and COVID-19 and all sorts of Ebola and all these exotic and deadly viral agents. But they've got all precautions in place. You know, they're wearing spacesuits essentially, and everything's gloves and antiseptics. The air is blown outward, sucked out of the place where they're staying. Somebody's watching them in case they tear their suit and so on. So they're protected. So Srimad Bhagavatam protects us so that we can study this virus without being infected.
And therefore Saraswati Vak, where Acharya is trying to...
Yeah, and it's all turned around. That's one of the things that you can do. If there's sadhuninda, you can defeat the person, defeat the blasphemer. Then it counts in your favor. You heard it, and then you smashed it. So essentially that's what our acharyas do. With great cleverness, they redivide the words, they derive different meanings. And so, for example, gunai hina. Gunai means good qualities and heen means devoid. But the acharyas take it, gunai means qualities, material qualities. And Krishna's gunai heen, he has no material qualities. That's glorious. So in this way we hear the blasphemy of Krishna, but then we get to enjoy hearing the blasphemy all defeated and turned into glorification of Krishna. So this is a great source of pleasure for the devotees, and Lord Krishna guarantees at the end, what is it? Sukadeva Goswami guarantees at the end. Anyone who hears these narrations from authorized persons will immediately be freed from all the reactions of the sinful activities of his life. So we're inoculated against the reactions, and rather it becomes a source of purification and joy. Yes?
It seems to me they also get the just desserts of their actions. They get the just desserts of their blasphemy.
The blasphemers do. Yes, certainly appears that way with Shishupal. Of course, he got exactly what he deserved. First he lost his head, and then he merged with the body of the Lord, and then he went back to Vaikuntha. So he got favored by that. Therefore the chapter, the liberation of Shishupal. Something else? Yes?
Going back to blasphemy.
Hold on a second, we're giving you a microphone.
You have to turn it on.
Hare Krishna, going back to blasphemy. So when we're preaching, we often encounter people who are very inimical towards Krishna, towards ISKCON. So unless we preach to them, they're not going to totally understand where we're coming from. So I just wanted you to talk on that a bit.
Yeah, while preaching we may encounter blasphemous persons. Therefore we're directed not to preach to those kind of people. If someone's, bad-mouthing Krishna, bad-mouthing the spiritual master, we go on to the next person. Otherwise we're, giving milk and bananas to a snake, you just increase his poison. So they're, alright, we came upon a snake, so we're just going to move on. Not preach the glories of the Lord to the unfaithful.
But we've seen devotees who have done lots of challenges towards...
you can hold that closer.
We've seen in the past lots of challenges that devotees have, before they've come to ISKCON, and then they become devotees.
Yeah, that may be that sometimes people have a blasphemous mentality, and then something happens and they become humble. That can happen. Sometimes we try to change their minds with good logic. That Gopinath Acharya, his brother, Sarvabhauma, was always giving some materialistic estimation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Gopinath Acharya would always berate him and try to give him good instructions, to very little avail. But later we see that at all Gopinath Acharya's desires came to fruition. And his brother-in-law became a great devotee. So we wish them well, and sometimes we may, depending on the situation, go head to head with them. But generally, like on book distribution and so on, we go on to the next person. Something else? Maharaj.
When it comes to blasphemy, and we hear about how dangerous it is, then naturally we become very cautious. Is there a danger in becoming so cautious about blasphemy that we go to the other extreme and and harm our spiritual life by not seeing things that need to be seen, because we become so.
Yeah, that can be there also. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami, the acharyas like Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur recommend that in the third canto there are different kinds of devotees mentioned. Those who are somewhat affected by the modes of goodness, those who are somewhat affected by passion, those who are somewhat affected by ignorance. And those especially who are affected by ignorance can be very wayward in their behavior. Passion also, but especially ignorance. They can be way off track in their behavior. They can be doing forbidden things and so on. So, but still they're chanting holy name or they're rendering some service. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur recommends that we should respect such persons from a distance. So to do that, you have to be able to recognize who they are. What is it that they're doing? And not just think, well, all the devotees. One should be able to distinguish. Otherwise, one may be affected by the bad association and pick up their qualities. What is that? Krishneti yasya giritam manasadhyeta. Those who are chanting Hare Krishna but may not be to the standard of proper behavior, you can respect them in your mind. And dikshasti jait paritigis. Those who are following will offer pranams and so on. And those who are advanced, expert in bhajan, will try to serve them, those who are free from envy. So Srila Rupa Goswami makes these distinctions because we're meant to observe them. A person on the Paramhansa platform may transcend that and see no difference. He sees that everyone's engaged in Krishna's service. But we can't imitate that. We have to distinguish. In practical, just to sort of bring it down to the very practical platform, somebody's asking us to engage in sinful activities, someone wants sexual favors, someone wants to do something abominable to us or to others. And we shouldn't be so foolish that we say, oh, he's a Vaishnava, I can't say anything, I can't. No, we should understand what these things are. He's, first of all, dangerous to me or to those close to him. And so remedial action may be required. That's a good point. Not that we're so very careful about Vaishnava aparad that anything heinous can be ignored and condoned.
I was thinking, Maharaj, that a lot of blasphemy is not necessarily in raising something, but it's in how you raise it, what forum, in what culture and etiquette.
Yeah. Good point. That when these things are there, they may be raised with the person privately or brought to his friends or peers for bringing to his attention. If we're junior, we may go to the other senior person. Could you please see what you can do for him? We may have to approach some authority privately. And the last place to go is Facebook. when all else has failed and we don't care about our spiritual life anymore. But that's part of being expert as a devotee, is to know how to deal with these things, how to bring them up in the, as you say, the proper forum, to the proper persons. Always thinking of the person's benefit also. Even if he's the most fallen, he may quickly come back to the standard. And then it comes on us. There was one incident, one leading devotee was involved in some illicit connection with women, and some sannyasis began broadcasting the news, and Srila Prabhupada was furious with them. He wasn't pleased. Yes, you've laid it on the line, you've called a spade, you've told the truth. He said, now he can never come back. So, Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shashvat Chantam Nigashtati Abhichet Sudarabhshano. Even if his behavior is the most abominable, if he's steadily determined to serve Krishna, then he'll quickly come back. And Krishna says, Sadhureva Samantapya, we have to consider him a sadhu. People don't like this. They would rather, even devotees, they would rather be guided by contemporary community standards of what constitutes morality than by the statements of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad-Gita. They think this is somehow a higher standard. Or else they've just, one way or another, when you look at what book they're following, it's the book of contemporary morality. But when we look at what Lord Krishna says, it's a different story. So we have to decide, do we believe it? Do we accept it? Do we implement it? Or do we just ignore it or pay it lip service and meanwhile go on with what the world will think is good, or what our friends or whoever.
Can I just ask one connected point to that?
Excuse me?
Just ask a connected point to that. In the 16th chapter of the Gita, Krishna talks about 6 demoniac qualities, and one of the qualities he mentions is harshness. And I always found it interesting because you don't generally find that quality in other lists of demoniac qualities, and it's not really described or explained so much.
Dambho, Darpo, Abhimanascha, Krodham, Parusha. Harshness, huh?
Harshness. That's the translation.
Yeah. Well, there's two things there. One is, that 16th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. We're never quite sure on I hate to say this, but on the translations, whether that's Srila Prabhupada's original word, or whether that's been borrowed from another translation. We don't have, for those last 6 chapters, the original dictations or manuscripts to tell us. So it may or may not be Prabhupada's word. It was accepted, certainly he saw the book, but we don't know. And the word-for-word meanings don't always help us because sometimes they've been edited to fit the translation. Parusham, if I recall Prabhupada's explanation elsewhere, comes from Purusha. Purusha, Parusha. So it's a sort of, like Abhiman, like pride, thinking oneself great. Parusha. I'm the man. Parusha. So that, of course, would be related to harshness. Parusha, it would be interesting to see, to do I'll follow your search. I didn't bring my laptop and see. And see where else in the books Prabhupada might have used, might have translated that word, Parusham.
Just once in Bhagavatam.
One place in Bhagavatam.
Danda Parusham.
Danda
Heavy chastisement.
Heavy chastisement. Danda's chastisement.
Intensifying the chastisement.
That's the only place, huh?
That's the only place.
How about that? You're not going to get a lot there. Any place else where he explains this Parusham? No.
That's the only time that word is used.
Oh, okay.
I did a search on harshness as well, and that doesn't come up so much.
And I didn't bring usually I bring my phone with me, on which I have the Monograham's dictionary. I could look up Parusham, but not with the phone I don't have. I don't think anyone put my phone in here.
I forgot it, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Something else? Thank you. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I can't understand it's the question about karma. The question about karma.
Yes.
I can't understand the connection with the law of karma and this story of Ekadashi and Papa Purusha, all of this. It seems
the story of what?
Of Ekadashi.
Oh, Ekadashi.
Ekadashi and Papa Purusha.
You know, I don't know anything about this Ekadashi, Papa Purusha stuff. None of it. Prabhupada never talked about it. He didn't make any reference to it whatsoever. It first came to our attention when one ISKCON devotee who took sannyas and later left ISKCON wrote the Ekadashi book, taking different statements from authorized shastras. The Prabhupada just didn't give it any importance. He didn't speak about it. His reference was entirely to, and one thing is these accounts are largely framed for followers of fruitive activities. If you follow this Ekadashi, you'll become a demigod, you'll have a sweet voice, you'll have lots and lots of cows, your wife will be woo woo woo, you know, all that kind of stuff. So be sure to follow this Ekadashi. And if you don't follow this Ekadashi, the Papa Purusha will catch up with you and all that kind of stuff. So Srila Prabhupada gave us a very different framework. That Ekadashi is an opportunity for remembering Krishna. That's our real interest. It's not that we're scared out of our wits of the Papa Purusha, and so we're in deadly fear of grains. We're trying to remember Krishna. And so we undergo a little tapasya, a little voluntary austerity. We give up grains, we give up beans for a day. Maybe we don't eat, that's okay. And the main thing is to increase our chanting, increase our hearing, increase our remembrance of Krishna. Probably that's real Ekadashi. Devotees typically stay up all night and chant the glories of the Lord. That's the thing. And you know, while they're chanting the glories of the Lord, they're not worrying about the Papa Purusha. Papa Purusha is not invited to the kirtan. And if he comes, that is not a problem. So, yeah. Is that okay? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked us to follow Ekadashi. He asked his mother to follow. So we followed. Prabhupada followed. We were followed. But he wasn't... he didn't seem to give a hoot about the Papa Purusha. Quick.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When coming to Vrindavan, unfortunately my anarthas don't immediately vanish like I would want them to. How to deal with this?
When you come to Vrindavan, your anarthas don't immediately vanish as you'd like them to. How to deal with this patiently. They will diminish if we go on patiently following the process, and especially in Vrindavan, there's special Prabhupada did tell us that everything in Vrindavan is amplified. The devotional service you perform here, especially in Kartik, but at any time, will have still greater strength. So let us go on, chanting, hearing, serving in Vrindavan. And two things. One is that we come and we don't see our anarthas immediately disappear, but I think many devotees may have experienced that after leaving Vrindavan, you feel how much weight you lost. You know how much weight of anarthas. Some devotees lose physical weight, that's another thing. But how much the burden of our material attachments or misunderstandings have been lifted, and how our inclination to serve Krishna has increased. Sometimes that happens, but while we're here, we don't realize it. When we go back, we see, the difference. And that's one thing. And another thing is that it's a process. We don't, maybe we come to Vrindavan and everything happens in one, but it may be you come again and again you'll get some further cleansing, further attraction to Krishna. Not that everything has to happen in 7 days. But, and in any case, the devotees, we want to come to Vrindavan. What is that? There's, I've forgotten the Sanskrit, but one of the symptoms of ecstatic devotion is that one wants to serve in a holy place like Vrindavan. One is attracted to such a place. So just if we develop some attachment to Vrindavan, Ananda Bala Hari Bhari Vrindavan, chant Hare Krishna, worship Vrindavan. Vrindavan's not an order supplier. Hey, I came here, I expected to be freed from all anarthas. You've got 24 hours, I want to see results. We've come to worship Vrindavan, to serve Vrindavan, and to serve the Lord of Vrindavan and the devotees in Vrindavan. And we're confident that by doing that, we'll accomplish every other purpose. Is that okay? Yes. Ananda Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. One of the biggest problem a person has in Krishna consciousness is, after hearing this chapter, is a devotee, when he comes into Krishna consciousness, he makes himself purified by hearing, chanting, associating. But one problem always remains, when another person, might be devotee or he might not be a devotee, insults us the way Shishupal insulted Krishna. When that insult is there, and that insult is not genuine, it's all blasphemy, it is not genuine, it is not at all has any worth also. And you are not on that track, it is all nonsense. So when that type of insult somebody does on us, at that time, although we are a devotee, but to maintain that mental equilibrium is extremely difficult.
But still we should try. Tulyanendatma samstuti. Mana pamaneostu. In 12th chapter. These are the qualities of a devotee. Mana pamanayo tuya. He's equipoised toward praise and blame. Tulya nindatma samstuti. So we try. There are different things, different points. One is that, of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, my critics are my friends. They're my friends. They're finding my faults, that's good for me. Even if there's, what's the word? Even if I'm not at fault, still it's good for me to learn tolerance, to learn patience, to become humble. So that's one point. Urmila Dasi sent me an instructive book written by a Christian minister, essentially on this same point, that I'm trying to remember that the term was like unoffendable. That we're unoffendable because if you didn't find my faults and you blessed me for something else, it's only because you hit the wrong target. But I have plenty of faults if only you found them. So who am I to be disturbed, considering my faulty nature? Considering my faulty nature, why should I be disturbed if someone's criticizing me? Also, that it's, from a psychological point of view, the business of the mind is that we're always building ourselves up. I'm good, I'm right, I know what I'm doing, I acted properly, the mind is always going on, and this person that, and this person this, and this person is a fool, and this person is envious, and this person didn't understand, and this person is he's just my enemy for no good reason, and this person is this, and this, and this. And the mind runs on like that. It's got like, anyone who's been on Govardhan Parikrama or Vrindavan Parikrama, they have those vendors who have endless loop tapes. Sheetal Pain Bomb, and whatever it is. And they go on, and this dart and that darted, it cures everything. So we have these endless loop tapes in our minds that go on building ourselves up and bad-mouthing what we think are the opposition. Prahlad Maharaj said there are no friends and enemies, there's only the mind. There's only the mind, which categorizes people, friends and enemies. So it's really to our advantage to get out of that mentality and to have a friendly, yes, there's this person's helping me, or by divine arrangement they're saying these things. Also, you can read the chapter concerning the chapters concerning the Shamantaka jewel, because it happened to Krishna too. He was accused of killing Prasena, Satyajit's brother, in order to steal the Shamantaka jewel, and the rumor went all around Dwarka, and Krishna was being bad-mouthed and so on. So even Krishna gets it, but more important, or also important at the end of the chapter, anyone who reads this chapter becomes free from the effects of such criticism.
I fully understand that we have to come to that level. But if you are on a neophyte angle, the biggest vicious circle that happens is somebody insults us, and it is not a genuine insult, it is something like blasphemy, and it is all just because they wanted to sort of put us off altogether. And we can understand it. So what happens is, we get so much affected that our daily sadhana gets disturbed.
Therefore we have to, we get so affected by these things as neophytes, so we have to recognize the problem and cut the loop. and especially this tendency to criticize the Vaishnavas. But even, to go around and everybody who stands in the way of my sense gratification or what I want is my enemy. There's a useful illustration. I think it's useful because I told this example to a couple of our temple presidents who happened to be at war with one another. There was some disagreement, and these two temple presidents were thinking, these guys are encroaching on our territory, these guys are, after our, they're both sides were having it on with the other side. So I remembered a story. This is not a Shastric story, but maybe you'll like it anyway. It's a vaudeville story. Those who are Americans, it's a certain kind of entertainment from maybe the 1940s, roughly. Anyway, here's the story. That, who told this story? Danny Thomas, I think. He was an old entertainer. That there was a man who was driving in a sort of quite desolate area, or not very, a rural area, and his car broke down. Car broke down meaning he had a flat tire. And fortunately he had a spare tire, but he didn't have a jack. So he thought that, what am I going to do? Well, I'll keep walking in the direction I've gone, and sooner or later there'll be a house, and I'll borrow a jack and I'll fix the tire, and then I can just, drive back and return the jack. So that's going to solve my problems. And it shouldn't really be very difficult because almost everybody has a jack. Anyone who has a car has a jack. And why wouldn't they lend the jack if they had one? And, I'm a respectable person. I don't look like a biker or something. So naturally I'll ask for the jack and they'll give me the jack. Any decent person would do that. I mean, what kind of person is it who wouldn't give you a jack? I'm in trouble, the evening is coming on. We're meant to help one another, and this is only human decency to help out another person. And if you didn't help a person in such a situation, I mean, you'd have to be just a creep. You'd have to be some sort of what kind of person would you have to be to refuse a gentleman a jack when his car is broken down and he needs help? You just have to be like a snake or a scorpion or the most envious kind of person alive to refuse a simple cheap item like a jack to a person in need. And he's going on like this, and he keeps walking, and finally he sees a farmhouse, and he climbs the steps, and he knocks on the door, and some fellow opens the door, and the man says, "Keep your damn jack." So this is the mind. Prahlad Maharaj says that there are no friends and enemies, there's only the mind.
Something else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yesterday to Anand Vrindavan Prabhu's question, you answered that every sadhaka has a common difficulty, that is forgetful of Krishna. So we think that we came to ISKCON, we are practicing Krishna consciousness, but still on a regular basis we observe that we are not completely remembering Krishna and we are still have that difficulty in us. Even in the process of Krishna consciousness also, taking the deity darshan, honoring prasadam, everything, still we see the enjoying mentality is lurking in mind and in us. We struggle a lot to develop that serving attitude or serving mentality, and we always, till the time we have this enjoying mentality, we be competitor to Krishna, and we lost the mood of serving to Krishna, devotees and everything. Whoever comes on the way to our sense gratification things, or on a basis of instructions from superiors or something like that. Everything is a difficulty, Maharaj. Like one may lose hope to continue Krishna consciousness sometimes, and one fall down also, when it may happen. So how can you give the solution for this problem, Maharaj?
We discussed, that we're trying to practice, but we see that we have all these, we have a persistent enjoying mentality, and it gets in our way. What do? I think I mentioned the other day is that it's good to recognize these things in ourselves, to think that there's a whole song by Bhakti-yoga Thakur. What is that song? Amar Jivan. Amar Jivan. Sada Paperata. Nahika Punyaralesh. Amar Jivan. My life is Sada Paper. But I'm always engaged in sinful activities. Nahika Punyaralesh. There's hardly a remnant of, hardly a scrap of pious activities. And he goes on, each verse magnifies this. I'm unhappy to see others happy. I'm happy when they're miserable. And he goes on. Yeah, if somebody has a copy, that's on my phone too. So he's our Acharya, and he's speaking this way about his own life. Maybe Mahaprasad will find that. So that means that this is part of our Vaishnava culture. He doesn't sing. I'm the most advanced devotee. In only 6 months, I went from 0 to 100. Everyone glorifies me, and rightly so. No, Vaishnava is thinking, I'm the most unqualified. Okay, here we go. In small. Okay, we can blow it up. Maybe we can blow it up. Yeah, there we go. Nija sukha lagi pape nahi thori, doya heen swarta paro, para sukhe dukhi, sada mitya bhashi, para dukkha sukha karo. Material desires within the core of my heart are unlimited. I'm angry, devoted to false pride and arrogance, intoxicated by pride, bewildered by worldly affairs, envy and ego are the ornaments I wear. No, that's the next verse. I've never hesitated to perform sinful acts for my own enjoyment, devoid of all compassion, concerned only with my own selfish interests. I'm remorseful, sorry to see others happy. I'm always lying, and when others are miserable, that makes me happy. All you need to do is hit a button and you'll be in the wrong song. Anyway, you get the idea that this is, he's going on in this way. So on the one side, it's good for us Also, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that it's good for us to take stock of where we are. Am I a neophyte devotee? Am I sort of making progress toward the medium platform, Madhyamadikari platform? Am I an Uttamadikari? We are, honestly look at ourselves and see where we are. He recommends that. And if in doubt, it's good to think of ourselves in the lower position. But, as I mentioned, there's a place in either purport to prayers of King Kulashekar or Narad Bhakti Sutra where it's pointed out that if this becomes a cause of diminishing our devotional service, then it's just another form of sense gratification. That it's just Maya creeping in through, she's always looking for a window to come in through, or a door, or a fan duct, or some way or other to get in and start creating mischief. So then, that's another way. If I'm so fallen I could never serve Krishna, I might as well, go back to, submit my resume with Google and see if they'll take me, and if not, then whatever. So there's a category in nectar of devotion, and one should hope against hope. Ashabandha. That in spite of all my shortcomings, still I'm determined to serve Krishna. I may be whatever I may be, I may have whatever shortcomings I have, but I'm determined to serve Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj, the demigods, offered all these beautiful prayers to Krishna in Sanskrit poetry. Lord Nrsingadev. Lord Nrsingadev was still on roaring. Well, Brahma pushed Prahlad forward. He's come for you, you try to go. He said, what can I do? I'm the son of a king. But then he remembered, this Gajendra, who wasn't even a human being, offered some prayers to the Lord, and the Lord accepted. So, all right, let me try. So having that humble mood is good for us, recognizing our own faults, or even thinking that we have faults that may not even be there, but I feel that I have them. It's all good for us. But not to the point where it means that I serve Krishna less. The result should be that I serve Krishna more. I'm so fallen, I'm so rotten that I have to serve Krishna. I have no other hope. Is that okay? Yes?
I haven't covered this already, but as devotees...
Let's give you a microphone.
As devotees, we like to help and encourage each other. And sometimes a devotee might be lacking in confidence or be down for whatever reason, but they're sincere and trying. But what's the best way to encourage them without, in the best way without maybe boosting their false ego? You know what I mean?
What's the best way to encourage them without
boosting their false ego? Maybe you might say, "Oh, you're a great singer" or something like that, and then you might, "Oh, go to hell." Or should we do that anyway because we should glorify the devotees, or not? You understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, we may encourage people and pick out their good qualities, and worse things could happen. People need some encouragement also. Or apart from that, you're a lousy singer, but Krishna doesn't really care. It's the devotion that counts. You've got one of the worst voices I've ever heard, but you're lucky you joined the right movement. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, how to always keep our Krishna consciousness enlivened? and not to fall into sometimes robotic way to do devotional
How
service.
to, and not fall into some robotic
Way to do like service.
how to stay enlivened. Keep company with those who are enlivened and perform, follow the regulated principles. That's there in Bhagavad-Gita. Noshi, what is that? Excuse me. No, not there. Red book, left home.
It's in there.
It's
12:9.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
I never remember the numbers.
Right, 12:9 there it is. Getting it now.
Tachittam samadhatam nishaknosi vaistira abhyasa yogena tata. Best thing is to be spontaneously enthusiastic. That's the best thing. Automatically, spontaneously Krishna conscious. If you can't do that, then abhyasa yogena tata. Mamich chaptam dhananjaya. Then follow the principles of sadhana bhakti so that you'll develop those desires. So in Nectar of Devotion there are 64 items, among which 5 items are very powerful. To associate with devotees, to serve the deity, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, to chant Hare Krishna, and to live in a place like Vrindavan. These are very, very powerful. And our Krishna consciousness movement is arranged in such a way that we're always doing these things. Every day we're associating with devotees, we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're sitting for the Bhagavatam class, we're serving the deity, and we go to a place like the Krishna temple or here to Vrindavan itself. These are all enlivenings. One other answer from a different point of view, if you want to be enlivened, give Krishna consciousness to others. Anandam buddhibhagana. It's the ocean of bliss that increases. So in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam it said that knowledge kept to oneself is like water kept in a cracked pot. It leaks out. But if you distribute it, it increases. So if you want to be enlivened, then spread Krishna consciousness to others. You'll be enlivened, guaranteed. Krishna will be pleased. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement to spread Krishna consciousness. When you do that, you'll be enlivened. Nobody will have to, you won't be mentally challenging yourself. What do I have to do? You'll automatically be enlivened. We see devotees, they're like staying at the temple and they're thinking, I don't know if I can go out, head is kind of achy and this and that and the other. Once they go out, they're in ecstasy. So that's another answer. Just spread Krishna consciousness. Who's going back to their home place for December? Anyone? Keshav Maharaj is leading the charge in the UK for the December book distribution marathon. So, and wherever you go, you can take part. Alright, our hour is ending. And we'd like to invite someone to do kirtan. In my Bhagavatam classes, for those who are interested, I give a class on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Bhagavatam, and Thursday on Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's at a very convenient time in New York, 7 p.m. Here it's at 5:30 in the morning. And so it may not be the best, but any time that you're in a favorable time zone and want to log on, you can find it on my website, jswami.info. You can find the links, and you're invited. So anyway, our standard there for kirtan, and for my evening classes, it's a good standard. I'm not saying this is the standard for the whole world, but for my classes, we ask that the kirtan be simple, easy to follow. One tune is enough. Just obeisance of Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Hare Krishna. We can leave the deity mantras, Jai, 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 to some other menu. Anything else?
If Panchatattva will agree to bounce the lead back and forth with me, I have a really sweet Kadamba Maharaj tune I've been meditating on today. Will you join me? Alright, can we?
Yes. Mike. Here.
Well, that one's easier to pass back and forth. Alright,
Vishnu Pada Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Guru Dasa Jayadvaita Swami Namane Namo Vishnu Pada Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shinyavari Paschatya Deshakarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Tagore Pranam.
Parivaritarya Shrote Krishna A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Nikki Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadip Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri ki jai, Gangamai ki jai, Shamanamai ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.